I just finished tramming my mill table and corrected it from about a thou per inch error to almost nothing. It looks rather perfect right now. But considering the problem that I had doing this, I thought it would be worthwhile making a video out of it and kind of going over it again. So first of all, we have to say that the manual that came with the mill was not really correct. Apparently they've made some updates over at King Canada, and actually the updates, I would imagine, would really improve the rigidity of the head, because they've added more bolts to it to make it sturdier and stronger, of course. But it was overlooked when they came to changing the manual to reflect that. They had forgotten, and now I am aware that they are in the progress of correcting that. So this mill, which is a KV-20VS-2, was produced in 2023 in April. It's a little hard to read, but I don't know, you probably can't see that. And they hadn't corrected the manual yet, but that, like I say, should be in the process right now. The bolts and nuts to make the adjustment on the tilt of the head are underneath here. And right now you can maybe just see one of them right there. There are actually 4 of them. The old manual only reflects having 2, but there are 4. And right now it's really tight to get in here with a wrench. You can't even see what you're doing. So we're going to have to lift the head in order to get in there. And of course, if we lift the head, we'll be lifting the indicators off of the table, so we won't be able to see what we're doing. So I found that I could get around that by using some 1, 2, 3 blocks. I placed the 1, 2, 3 blocks between the table and the indicators. And actually the setup is looking very nice. That one agrees with that one really close. But now that gives us some room to get in underneath here. And perhaps if I get a flashlight, you can see more of those bolts. Now that we've got a little bit more light on the situation, we can see all 4 bolts in there. There's one situated at 3 o'clock, another one at 6 o'clock, and another one at 9 o'clock. And in the middle, we have the pivot bolt. All of those bolts have to be loosened to some degree in order to get that head to swivel from left to right. The center bolt is 19 millimeters, and the other bolts are 17. And this is the wrench that came with the mill. I found that using the box end wrenches, 19 millimeter and 17 millimeter, it is a lot easier, especially when you can't get your nose in there to see what you're doing. Now, if you don't have a 19 and a 17 millimeter, the 3/4 inch wrench works, and the 11/16 wrench will work. And they're a little sloppy, but it will work if you're stuck for a wrench to make those adjustments. So the first thing you need to do is get your tramming indicators set up. And I put this on top of the Joe block. And then I've swung this around. We set that one to 0 there. We just moved it. And this one here on top of this same Joe block, and set it on 0 too. A little hard to see, but it is set on 0. So now when you put these back in their original position, you can take your other Joe block, or 1, 2, 3 block rather, and put it underneath, and whatever difference you see between those 2 indicators is your error. And you can work that out over the distance between the two indicators, which in this case is 6 inches, and then again work it out over per inch error. You are going to need to loosen all of those bolts underneath here in order to get the head to tilt one way or the other. But don't get them too loose because the head could start moving on its own. You're going to need to support it in that case. So just a little bit tight, not too tight, but don't loosen them all the way. Now once you've got them loosened, you take a hammer like this one. Some of these are rubber, some are kind of a plastic, but then you can tap on this to move it. And when you're tapping, you can watch those indicators. And when they start reading the same, that's when you stop. I found it works better when you go to tighten things up. If you tighten up the center one first, there's less movement happens on the indicators, because the indicators might want to move on you when you start to tighten things, and you may have to do some more tapping after tightening a little bit and then tighten some more. But do the center one first and then do your other locking screws and holding screws that are in there. And that worked better for me than starting with another bolt. If you don't have one of these tramming indicators, you could make something up like this. This one here, this is, I think that's 3/4 or 5/8. I can't remember. I think it's 5/8. And you can make it as long as you want. You can make it this one is almost the full length of the table. In which case there might be a little bit of error with this moving. So 6 inches is kind of ideal. This was made for a larger mill, so I left it longer. And you can put it over here and zero it, and then swing the whole thing around and see how much it moved over here. It's pretty well the same as this, only you're not getting to see both sides at the same time. But that will work as well. So you could always make one of those up, making sure that this is very square to here. And lastly, if you have one of these things, you could always rig it up on some kind of a bar and swing it from side to side, from this side to that side. I did say something about making sure this is really square. That's not really critical. I tend to be too fussy at times, and I remember checking this out with a precision square. But if it's tilted a little bit, as long as it's solid and doesn't move, you're going to be good.